I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. We got off on the wrong foot.
Netflix's Cowboy Bebop is here, and for fans of the OG anime, it's probably not what you were expecting, and we understand being upset about that.
You guys are dicks.
However, we're about to spoil the Netflix series and the anime, so if you're afraid of either of those things, now's your chance to get out. For those fresh to the Cowboy Bebop landscape,
this is a juicy steak, cowboys.
Cowboys in this context are space bounty hunters, and Bebop is the ship that our three favorite bounty hunters, Spike, Faye, and Jet, hang out on. Both the anime and the Netflix series center on Spike, who has a complicated past with a crime syndicate that he faked his death to get away from. But when we meet him in both series, his past, specifically his psychopathic ex-partner Vicious, and the love of his life are starting to catch up with him.
I never stop loving you.
Now, the anime is considered to be one of the best of all time. It's because it blends a bunch of different genres together, and the music is outstanding, and it's a story that's sort of timeless. So when Netflix announced in 2018 that they were making a live-action adaptation of the series, fans were excited. But now that the live action has come out, it's safe to say that it's more inspired by the anime than actually based on it.
Holy shit.
Maybe he's trying to make a statement? Who knows?
So what we want to focus on in this video is specifically the end of the Netflix series and how it sets itself apart from the anime, because the character paths and where they're going to go from now on are completely different.
I don't think we need you at all.
The season finale of the Netflix series actually is kind of a mashup of two of the iconic anime episodes. It's Ballad of Fallen Angels and The Real Folk Blues. Real Folk Blues is also the anime series finale, but the way that it works in the Netflix series is really to set it up for more seasons to come rather than telling a close-ended story. In the anime, Ballad of Fallen Angels is where we really get Spike's backstory, and it is Vicious who sends Spike falling through the rose window, leaving him for dead. They fight again in the anime series finale, but it's not at the cathedral, and the circumstances surrounding them that final fight together are completely different. When asked about moving Ballad of Fallen Angels and that epic set piece to the end of the Netflix adaptation, executive producer Andre Nemec explained he always knew where he wanted to take season 1 of the Netflix show and why there could only be one place to set that climactic final fight.
I wanted to see Spike and Vicious in a fight at the end of the season, again, in the ultimate showdown, and there was no place to set that fight but in front of the rose window. That was a very early days knowing where we want to go. How do we tell the story to get ourselves there?
Spoiler alert, in the anime, Vicious, Spike, and Julia end up dead by the end of the series, and Julia dies trying to protect Spike. In the live action version, Spike and Julia finally come face to face after 3 years apart and missing each other, but then only to realize that they're not on the same page, and it actually has an anti-romantic counter vibe to the anime.
Getting her there to build towards a love story that felt inevitable, that Spike and Julia were gonna wrap each other in one another's arms, and to realize, like with so many things in life, that the narrative that we write for ourselves, the narrative that Spike wrote for himself upon seeing Julia, well, that narrative isn't her narrative anymore. And that moment has passed. I wanted to build to that moment where we could really empower Julia to say, I'm not the problem. I am not what started this war. You guys are the problem, and I'm going to eliminate the problems.
And grab power is exactly what Julia does. Not only does she reject Spike and become the one to actually throw him out of the rose glass window, but she decides to take over the Syndicate and take that power for herself after spending most of the Netflix series just being a glorified chew toy for these violent men to fight over. And telling that story of Julia reclaiming her power is why Nemec agreed to do this series. While we're all about female empowerment here, it's a little unclear in the Netflix series exactly when Julia makes the decision that she wants the Syndicate and not Spike. When she initially sets up an assassination attempt against Vicious, we believe it so that she can reunite with Spike. But once the plan is set into motion, she's kind of just sitting there.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It makes no sense why Julia is still sitting in the house when Vicious returns from the Elders, still alive and ready to take out all of his rage on her. And according to Elena Satine, who plays Julia in the series, her ambitions evolved over time, and it wasn't until that final moment with Spike that she knew she was going to take over the Syndicate.
All these years, you knew where I was. Yet you let me languish with him.
there's a lot of resentment that she carries that he didn't come for her. So I think her perspective changes from, if Spike was alive, he'd save me, to, oh, Spike is alive, he didn't save me, I'm living with this maniac. The only way out is to sort of manipulate myself into a position of power. I think it happens gradually over the season, but especially after finding out that Spike is alive. And then the disagreement they have in the cathedral really cements that decision for her.
When we first meet Julia in the Netflix series, she's a little bit of a wilted flower and clearly under Vicious's thumb. It's a bit of a shock that Julia turns on Spike the way that she does, but according to Nemec, it's proof of her evolution throughout the series, and she has every right to be like, WTF, man, when she realizes that Spike was alive for several years and never came back for her.
Why didn't you come for me?
It was the fairest question that anybody could ever ask. It was something that we legitimately asked ourselves in the writer's room, which was like, why didn't he come for her, knowing what had happened? And I think in that moment, her emotion takes over and she's like, you know what? I will take the throne alone.
Julia being charged with the Syndicate leaves a lot of questions for a potential season 2. One of the biggest being like, what exactly are Julia's plans for the Syndicate and what kind of leader would she be? Elena Satine says that it might not be exactly what viewers are expecting.
Hopefully a less violent one. I gotta tell you, I don't know, and I'm so hopeful for a season 2 because I'm so eager to find out the position that Julia takes. In my heart, I don't think she's going to be a softie, that's for sure.
Of course, Julia is not the only one who survived Cowboy Bebop Season 1 when her anime counterpart did not. Live action Vicious is also still kicking when the credits roll, so that leaves us to question, will Julia and Vicious become a partnership after all?
In a way, Julia does still need him locked up in the basement. I think there's definitely potential there for the two to work together in some way. I couldn't imagine like a romantic reconciliation. Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? I guess it's sort of a question as to how broken Vicious is and how desperate he is and what he needs to do going forward. I mean, he's just got no one. He's got no one at all.
As for Spike, well, he ends the Netflix series first season lower than we've ever seen him. But it is kind of the closest to the anime ending of all the characters. He falls face first on the ground. However, Netflix Spike doesn't just have bullet holes wearing him down at the end of the season. The final battle with Vicious at the cathedral had some major fallout for him and his best buddies, Jet and Faye, and his found family is broken apart by the end of the season.
Let him go.
Which leaves Spike in a very interesting place going into this potential season 2.
I'm not finished here.
What?
I'm anxious to know what the season 2 is going to be. I mean, to say he hit rock bottom is a little bit of an understatement. Right now, he doesn't have a reason to keep the feet moving forward, you know? I don't know what the light is going to be that, makes him stand up again, but I'm excited to find out.
Of course, the love triangle's paths are not the only ones that are affected by the changes in the Netflix series. Jet also ends up in a different place. He considered himself to be Spike's partner throughout the entire series until he found out about Spike's past and the fact that he lied about it.
They called you fearless.
And when Vicious's attempts to kill Spike led to Jet's daughter Kimmy being kidnapped, it caused a schism that will not easily be rectified by Spike in a potential season 2. Mustafa Shakir shared with us that he's optimistic but really unsure about how Spike is going to be able to repair the found family after everything that went down in season 1.
There's a love there, they get along in a way that I feel like it's like any great relationship where you fall out, if you get in the right settings, you'll be reminded of that love and maybe there's a chance of rekindlement.
But enough talk about the boys. We haven't even talked about our favorite foul-mouthed bounty hunter yet, and that's Faye Valentine.
Hey, you.
In the anime, Faye gets her memories back by the end because, again, it's a close-ended story. But in the Netflix series at the end of season 1, Faye still doesn't know who she is or where she came from. So she leaves both Jet and Spike to go get those answers, which sets up a really interesting journey for her in season 2. Actress Daniella Pineda explained to TV Guide why it was so essential for Faye to go find those answers for herself before she could ever contemplate a life of permanently hunting down bounties with Jet and Spike.
She's really a lonely person. This is the family that she's picked, and obviously she will return to them in some way, shape, or form, but I think she just needs those answers to make sense of the world.
While the anime ended with Faye and Jet still on the Bebop together and the love triangle dead, it's clear that Netflix is shaking things up in order to make for a potential season 2. What is clear is that if this season 2 happens, it's probably going to diverge even more from the anime, and OG fans are going to have to decide if they're okay with that and willing to accept new stories within the Bebop universe, or if they just want to go back to rewatching the anime over and over again. It's up to you. While I completely understand anime fans not wanting to give the Netflix series another chance, I'm too invested now, and I think the series has some really fascinating questions about these characters that still need to be answered. So when Julia eventually takes over the solar system, I'm here for it. Plus, we need to see how Spike, Faye, and Jet reunite, and obviously what the Netflix series has in mind for Radical Ed, who didn't physically show up in the series until the final moments of the season finale.
Wake up! I have a job for you!
But now we want to know your thoughts. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and leave us a comment. And if you want more cool content like this, hit subscribe and hang out with TV Good.